Muhammad is a 23-year-old engineer from Saudi Arabia. He has been married for almost 3 years now. They are expecting their second child. And after working for his firm for almost 2 years, he finally got promoted. Sure, there is a lot of responsibilities and he works a bit extra now, but the payment is really good. He is finally doing well. Lorenzo is a 60-year-old man from Italy. He is originally from a small village in Sicily. However, now he lives in Milan, where he works as a security guard for a very big law firm there. Himari is a 17-year-old from Edogawa in Tokyo, Japan. She suffers from hikikomori, a rare social phenomenon, although I wouldn't call it very rare. Anyway, it resulted in her almost complete withdrawal from any social interaction. Now you are probably wondering, what do all these three have in common? Okay, probably that's bullshit. You are probably wondering, what the fuck is hikikomori? But we'll get to it. Anyway, for now, and for the sake of my introduction, let's rewind. You are probably wondering, what do all these three have in common? And the answer is One Piece, a very popular anime. However, me saying they have it in common is because the three of them are extremely obsessed with One Piece. And by obsessed, I don't mean they like the show. Sure, many people like it. By obsessed, I mean they buy every figurine. They buy the costumes and attend many cons with it. They consume a lot of theory videos, a lot of social media videos circling around One Piece. They engage in online debate. They are literally obsessed with the show. But before we dive into their situation and why they like One Piece, I want to first thank you for joining me here today. This is my second video. And if by any means you have watched the first video, you probably noticed a big upgrade. I mean, I wouldn't really call it an upgrade since the first one was audio focused and this one is video. Anyway, this is the first time in a very long time that my desk is clean and probably will be the last, so enjoy it. Anyway, I have my coffee here. It's summer, it's hot, so I'm sorry in advance if I sound a bit cranky, but I'm not a summer person by any means. So let's try to have a good video, and welcome to my channel. Now let's dive into it. Look, whenever you argue or debate about a show or a novel, you discover that not everyone shares your own opinion on the matter. Sometimes these discussions end as heated debates, and perhaps in the best case scenario, everyone agrees to retain their own view of that said show. I mean, which makes sense. After all, art is subjective, or so they say. But honestly, that's bullshit. First of all, everything in life is subjective. I mean, our senses are subjective by nature, so everything we take through these senses will automatically be subjective. But that doesn't mean we can't rate it through a specifically objective metric. I mean, you might say that maybe art and creative work is a bit more subjective than other things we take through our own senses, but that's also wrong. I mean, taste is subjective. That I can work with. However, art itself isn't subjective. Let me give you an example. I don't like the Mona Lisa, okay? I find it a bit creepy. So if I say I dislike the Mona Lisa, I'm entitled to my taste. However, if I say that the Mona Lisa is a low quality work, well then you will call me, rightfully so, an idiot. But regardless of that, our title here today isn't what makes a story good, although it was initially, but I changed it. Oh wait, you can read the title, you already know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I have to still say it. Our title here today is about why do we like stories, as in why do we like them subjectively? Because even a subjective taste can still be measured to some extent, or at least analyzed. However, there is a reason why we don't really analyze subjective taste. It's because of the ongoing notion that humans are unique. Everyone likes things for a different reason, etc. So we cannot, because everyone is unique, therefore everyone has a unique reason. However, that's absolutely wrong. Well, not wrong completely. I mean, sure, all humans are unique in a way, but that doesn't mean that some of us have wings, some of us can teleport, some of us can go on without eating, or so, Like, we are pretty much identical for the most part. We just have a little bit of twist here and there, and that's about it, basically. And in a way, understanding these twists and these small changes in every human will automatically help us understand why they like what they like. Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. In the introduction, I didn't really give much information about the background of each of the three people we mentioned. So let me give you a bit of information about One Piece and about the three people. Well, first of all, One Piece, and if you have been living under a rock for, I don't know, the past like 10, 20 years or so, probably more, it is more. One Piece is a manga. It is originally written by Ichiro Oda. It is animated, which means it has an anime made for the manga. They are both ongoing still. And One Piece is slowly but steadily pretty much marching towards becoming the single best selling fictional work of all time. I believe it crossed the 500 million copies or so. Anyway, One Piece features the theme of freedom for the most part. It focuses on Luffy, a kid who dreams of becoming the king of the pirates. Sorry. He's surrounded by his family, like a crew who all share an unbreakable bond, and they will all sacrifice their life for the captain's dream of becoming the king of the pirates. However, it's not really about that. It's mostly about a group of people who go from one island to another and one nation to another and help liberate it in a way on their journey to reaching their final destination. The world of One Piece is dominated by a one single dictatorship. It's called the world government. They basically have gathered all the nations under one governing body, and they rule the world in a dictatorship in a way. The pirates, on the other hand, are not that much better in a way. They are both pretty much, to some extent, bad people, at least in the enemy logic. However, the story tries not to dive too deep into political issues. It focuses on the main story of traveling and fighting, etc. It is an anime work after all. I mean, don't get me wrong, One Piece as a series has a lot of influence. Like, if you are familiar with any political changes lately, you have probably seen the Gold Roger of One Piece, of the crew, which is a skull and two bones and a straw hat on top. That's the Jolly Roger of the Straw Hat Pirates, which is the main crew. Anyway, you have probably seen it in all revolutions around the world that happens last, I don't know, 1 or 2 years or so. It is very influential, despite it being childish in a way. Anyway, let's get back to three people, starting with Muhammad. Muhammad, as we said, he is from Saudi Arabia. However, we didn't mention that Mo comes from a very rich family, and all his friends are the byproduct of the same style of upbringing. He has enjoyed life to the fullest. He spends days partying in the desert, FIFA tournaments, he travels a lot, pretty much all for the price of keeping his education impeccable. But all of Mo's life changed basically 1 year before graduating. It is when he met his future wife, a Moroccan named Salma. Now, despite Mo's effort, and he did put in a lot of efforts, his parents didn't agree of his marriage to Salma. In fact, when Mo married Salma, his parents denounced him completely and cut all ties with him. For the first time in his life, Mo was alone, genuinely alone. Not lonely and not on his own, which is not really that good in this particular situation because his wife didn't work, so he had another mouth to feed. He went on to have one child and he is expecting another. So that meant Mo had to work non-stop. He went from being a spoiled person into a very hard-working person, working 2 shifts a day. And he didn't really complain about it. After all, he really adored his wife. However, one still might eventually uh, imagine a time where he didn't have all these responsibilities, where he could just be free in a way. Unlike Mo, however, Lorenzo didn't come from a very rich family, and working hard wasn't really a problem for him. He was used to it. And the law firm he was a security for did pay him fairly well, but he hated his job. Like, I don't know when it was exactly, I don't recall exactly from reading details, but if I recall correctly, at some point a woman who was hysterically crying tried to enter the law firm. Of course, it was security, so he denied her access. She had somewhat of a case where the law firm twisted a way into taking all of her inheritance for another person in her family, and she was left with completely nothing despite being the primary inheritor. Uh, she couldn't really storm the law firm. However, she walked like 2-3 meters and took out a gun and shot herself in the head. As far as I know, she was the only person who killed themselves in front of Lorenzo. However, she was by no means the only person who tried protesting or storming the firm. Things weren't really going well there. At first, he kind of forced himself to respect the unrespectable young snobs who were about him because his job paid well. He had 3 kids to feed, but as we mentioned before, Lorenzo is very old now. His kids have grown, they got married, and they have families of their own now. They even moved out, to their home village. And after Lorenzo's wife died, which completely broke him, he kind of had no reason to go on. But he isn't very far from retirement. He has like 3-4 years more. And even though he is a shell of a man, he is trying his best to reach retirement and move out to live with his, or near at least, in his village, near his 3 children. Himari, on the other hand, is a bit intriguing. She never really fit in much. However, she did try to appeal to her peers in a way. Sure, she suffered from the occasional bullying, but that's the case for most people in Japan anyway. But things changed for Hima when she was filmed being beaten by 10 girls who then forced her to do dojeza, which is a form of apologizing. She had to apologize for the 10 bullies who beat her and she kissed their shoes. They shared the video went viral. The change occurred in 2 stages. First stage was kind of good. The bullying nearly stopped. No one approached her actually because of the lawsuit. After going viral, the case basically reached the police, and they had an investigation. Journals wrote about it. So after all this exposure, the bullying kind of died out. Only for a while, because the bullying eventually came back, and since a lot of people recognized her from that video, uh, somehow the bullying circle grew. Like it was initially the girls in her class, then it grew to the girls in her whole school, then it grew to neighboring schools, pretty much random people, even adults at some point. So it kind of went really bad and really fast, fairly, to the point where Himari completely withdrew. She no longer leaves her room. She doesn't speak to her parents. No matter what, regardless if she even starves to death, she doesn't leave her room. If it wasn't for her mother sliding her food 3 times a day below the door, she wouldn't even eat. She refuses to see anyone, to talk to anyone. And this is hikikomori, by the way. It is fairly common in Japan. You'd be surprised by how many people, and under so many social, I'm not going to go into the actual details of the social phenomena, but under very high social pressure and work pressure, because kids have to prepare for work and get kind of selected at a very young age, and they don't make it, they kind of screw their life up. It has put so much pressure on kids, and kids just kind of crack in a way. Anyway, and let's get back to our topic. If you have read the manga or watched the anime, you probably have made the connection by now. But to give you an extra hint, if you have watched the series, Mo's favorite character is Luffy. Lorenzo's favorite character is Garp, while Himari really loves Nami. If you haven't watched or read the show, Garp is a Marine. Marines are the soldiers of the world government, the ones that is ruling all over the world. However, Garp is very strong. The series is about fighters in a way. So Garp being very strong allows him to live by his own morals and not following the world government's order. And despite that, he never really faces any consequences for his actions because he is just too powerful to be prosecuted and way too important to be prosecuted. Luffy is Garp's grandson. His father is actually an ex-marine who went on to become the leader of the revolutionaries, which is a group of people that goes on and liberate nations from the world government. But Luffy doesn't really follow any of these paths. He doesn't really have a greater meaning of things. He is just a child. He has a free spirit that just wants to be free and chase his dreams without any responsibilities, not the responsibilities of being good nor of being bad and what comes with it. He just want to be free. Nami, on the other hand, is probably one of the very first few people who joined the crew. She was actually a slave. She wasn't liberated until a very old age. It is after actually joining the crew that she was liberated, and she kind of formed a newfound family in the crew who would literally die for her. So yeah, I guess now it should make more sense. However, you must be thinking about two things right now. One of these things is that it doesn't really take a genius to make a connection of why they have elevated the show to be so much more than a show or so much more than a story due to their own situation. And you would be right, because these aren't real people. These are characters I made specifically to fit in those, which is in a way not realistic because humans don't really come with a background and a backstory to kind of explain why do they like something or why do they enjoy something. Humans are way more complex. I know I argued that they aren't unique, but they are still, we as humans, we are still very complex. And we are very secretive, and more so, we don't even know or understand it. And the second thing you might be right about is that this took way too much time, and you cannot really rely on such analysis on a larger scale. And you would also be right, because it's not realistic to gather this amount of information and background to understand why everyone likes it. However, don't forget the title of the video, which is that why we are trying in this video to understand why we, as individuals, I mean, for everyone to understand why we like a certain story. And more so, this is a very marginalized type of story. I call it the third and deepest level. You basically only have that obsession for one story, maybe two in your whole life. And look, if you have felt kind of cheated because these characters are not real, are fictional, let me tell you my own story. But before I do, and while writing the script of this video, I actually found three levels, as I said before, of stories. The first level is a general level, why we like stories in general. The second is more specific. It has a connection with genre-specific stories. And by stories, of course, I don't mean novels. I mean every form of story, from manga to television series, to anime, to novels, to movies, etc., to plays. You get the point. And the third level, it is when we elevate a story higher than what a story should be. We kind of make it religious in a sense, which is what these characters were supposed to have with One Piece, and what I had around 5 years ago or so. I was at my lowest back then. I had failed my academic pursuit of psychology. I was this close to getting my bachelor's degree, and I had to stop before that. My back pain due to my disc surgery was keeping me from attending my work, my labor work. This is what I used to do. And I was suffering from a mental case that was really draining me and taking it all on my overall energy. And I kind of went the same way as our imaginary friend Himari here, but for different reasons. I wanted to focus on myself, what I want to do with my life. Now that my path was basically a stop, like I couldn't continue my academic pursuit, and at the same time I couldn't do my labor work. So I had to find something that I want to do in my life, and kind of I wanted to find the energy to do it and to go on. In short, I wanted to get my shit together, and I had promised myself not to leave isolation before I actually have a solid ground to work on and a solid goal to work towards. Anyway, after my isolation started, it took me pretty much less than a week to remember my long-lasting dream of becoming a novelist, rekindle it in a way. And I started studying, I started reading about how to become a writer, novelist in particular. And in next to no time, I found myself starting to actually write a story. However, I am a logical person, so I needed to understand. If I'm going to pursue becoming a novelist, I need to be able to write, not because I like something, but because I can objectively write. I hate the idea that you have to rely on some sort of inspiration to write. It needs to be consistent in order for it to become a job. Therefore, I decided to write my first book on the genre that I like the least. Not to say I dislike, although I dislike it, wait, which is a slice of life. And I was reading online about famous slice of life television series because it's easier for me to consume television series while doing other things. And for some reason, someone had mentioned Gintama, despite it actually now that I've watched it, I know that it is a gag comedy, not an actual slice of life. However, their mistake was kind of in my favor because I downloaded Gintama, I pirated Gintama. I am sad to admit that, but yeah. Anyway, I downloaded the series and I started to watch it. And Gintama, by the way, is my go-to series. It is my favorite series of all time. And it had become more than just a story for me. At the time, and as you would expect from someone being in isolation, I was very lonely and miserable as hell. So I was initially drawn to the comedic relief in Gintama, which helped a lot. Well, that and the music. I really loved the music. The first opening of Gintama, it's called Pray. It's very warm. I cannot describe to you how warm it is, especially for someone in isolation. It was magical. But what hooked me to Gintama was actually seeing someone struggle to write a story. Gintama, if you are a writer, you will see it differently. It's pretty much a story about someone who's struggling to write a story. He tries to apply the same techniques that I was studying at the time. The way he mocked was very hilarious. And with time, I fell in love with the characters. The characters in Gintama, to me, are probably the best ever written characters in fiction. At least the anime. Despite loving the series so much, I haven't read the manga. But I mean, I cannot even pick like one character to be my favorite. Yeah, I do love Zura, to be honest, but I love them all. Like, Kingdom has the best set of characters ever. Anyway, this anime and this series pretty much helped me get through this dark time in my life. I'm almost certain if it wasn't for Gintama, I wouldn't have made it out of it, especially with my mental condition. It pretty much carried me out. And since then, I have watched the anime like, I don't know, 8 times. I mean, I genuinely wish I could relive the first time I watched the anime. That's not me recommending the anime, by the way. It may not hit the same notes because, again, I was in a different situation and all the elements helped me in a way. And I guess that's my style too. But yeah, it's different. It's different for me. Anyway, enough of the emotional bullshit and let's get back to the video. That Gintama to me represents the third level of elevating a story. The second level, however, I came across when I was studying and consuming writing advice. pretty much almost everyone giving an advice on writing, them being writers or consumers, etc., or professionals like publishers, they almost always have the same advice. This is a staple one, which is that you should write in one genre in particular, preferably if you can write in one series. That would help retain your audience somewhat. And initially, I disliked it. I even found it stupid to some extent. I mean, if I go to the supermarket, I wouldn't be surprised if they sell both paper towels and vegetables. Sure, the supermarket in this case would be the publisher, not the actual writer. Samsung makes both phones and refrigerators. I'm not surprised that they do both, and they do washers and dishwashers, etc. They make electronics. So to me, a writer should be able to write in multiple genres. It shouldn't be surprising. I mean, for me, writing is the embodiment of freedom, and I didn't want to write in one genre, or worse, one actual series. And I myself, as a consumer, I didn't consume one genre or one type of series. So at the time, I brushed it off as a Westerner thing because I'm Asian and Middle Eastern in particular. And for us, we don't really consume one genre. And all the people giving advices were Westerners, and I know that Western societies are most individualistic societies, and in individualistic societies, people tend to try to be as unique as possible in comparison to our societies that are groupism societies where you try your best to blend in and not be unique at all. So in my mind, the difference in that probably at least push towards people preferring to read in one genre or consume one genre in Western societies. I mean, that was pretty much the only logical solution because, I mean, all of these people were pros, they had data to rely on, so of course they knew that this is what sells. But to me, accepting that was accepting the idea that someone finishes a horror novel and goes on and buys another horror novel, then another, then another, then another. I mean, sure, we all like candies, but I wouldn't eat candy on breakfast, on dinner, on lunch, etc. It wouldn't make sense, you know. There is a great amount of stories in every genre, and just consuming one genre feels, I don't know, boring, I guess, and very limiting, which is exactly the opposite of what a story is. However, while writing the script, I understood my mistake, which is comparing stories to food. Food is essential for us. Stories are not essential for us. Regardless if you elevate a story like we do in the third level, at the end of the day, it's really not a necessity. We don't really need that. So let me explain in a better example. I'm 30 years old. I'm not that old, but I have smoked for 15 years and I've been off smoking for the past 3 years or so. I initially didn't smoke because I needed smoke. It wasn't essential for me. I mean, let's face it, it doesn't even taste good. It tastes awful, but I initially started smoking because it was cool to smoke, but most importantly, it also helped me to regulate my mood, uh, to feel relaxed. It was kind of my safe space in a way. Sure, it didn't make me happy, but it also kept me from feeling sad. And you know what? I actually smoked one brand for the vast majority of those 15 years. It was called Lucky Strike, and I smoked it for like 12 out of the 15, and the rest three were uh, in in periods where we didn't have Lucky Strike. So I used to smoke Gitan, which was the only other brand I used to tolerate. So you probably get my point by now. But in case you didn't get the comparison of smoking to stories, after all, one substance is very bad for us and the other is kind of very good for us. So let me give you a direct example. It is why I like sitcoms. The first sitcom I have ever watched was actually How I Met Your Mother, and it was perfect for me. Like it hit all the right notes for me, and I binge watched the entire series. Uh, I remember crying when it ended, at least for me, because it was a binge watch. However, I wasn't left alone for long because right after I found Friends, which was also perfect for me. So it quickly filled that gap for me. I didn't binge watch Friends the same way I did with How I Met Your Mother because I actually wanted to savor it in a way. But regardless, it eventually ended. And the thing was starting on top, and yes, we could argue all day what sitcoms on top, but for me, these two represent the absolute top of the top. And the problem with starting on top is that you could only go downhill from there. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have watched a lot of good series afterwards. None of them really reached that peak and that high. And with time, I started doing other things while watching sitcom, like, I don't know, doing my work, eating, playing video games on my phone, so many other things. And they just weren't as exciting for me anymore. They no longer, in a way, gave me this blissful feeling. I didn't cry in intense situations. I didn't feel excited when they make up. Uh, I didn't feel, I don't know, like crying whenever I saw through their actions and how they cared for one another, etc. It just wasn't there anymore. I rarely even watched series afterwards that actually pushed me to look from my phone and actually look at the screen and see the actors as persons rather than just some background voices. You know what? Despite all of that, I continued watching sitcoms. I continued watching sitcoms because even though they didn't really help me feel happy or excited, they still kept me from being lonely and sad. They helped me regulate my mood. They generally kept me from feeling lonely, actually. And more so, I am an overthinker. So let's say I'm doing a task. No task at hand will take more than 70-80% of my focus. And the other 20%, if left unchecked, usually tend to go and lead me to very dark mental places. So these series help kept these 20% focus in check and occupied and kept me from drifting in a way. And that, my friends, is the second level. Sure, it's not as glamorous as the third level. It doesn't change your life forever, but it is still very important and it kind of still plays a bigger role than what an entertaining story does. Like, it helps you regulate your mood, it helps you stay efficient, continue to do what you do on a daily basis. It generally plays a bigger role than a normal entertaining story. And it is kind of what makes sales and people who give you advice tell you to write in a very specific genre and more so in a very specific series if possible. Because let's face it, if How I Met Your Mother had, I don't know, 50 seasons, I'll probably watch the 50 seasons. If I mean, Simpsons and Family Guy are continuing, and I don't know about you, but for me, I do watch them regularly, regardless of how much time they will go on, because they represent that second level for me and for many others, if you get my point. Which brings us actually to the first level, and it is entertainment purpose. And please, I beg you, if you only watch level 2 and level 3 series, come on, just experiment a little. I know that the second level keeps you very not sad and very regulated, etc. However, it also, as we said before, doesn't make you happy. It might have made you happy the first time you consumed the very top of the genre, but afterwards it kind of stopped, and we both know that. However, guess what? Top stories from other genres do provide you with that happiness and that excitement. I mean, I know you like pizza, but if you eat pizza all the time, eventually it's gonna become boring. You will need a break from pizza to re-enjoy pizza in a way. Like, let's say your second favorite food is steak, which is ironic coming from a vegetarian, I know. Anyway, let's say your second favorite food is steak and your first favorite food is pizza. Now, surely you prefer pizza over steak. However, the best steak in the world is surely gonna be more tasty than a mid-tier pizza, for example. I mean, you might enjoy, I don't know, horror movies about a clown killing people. But I mean, let's face it, Game of Thrones, what we have of it. Not gonna nag on George R. R. Martin. Anyway, a Game of Thrones book is probably gonna be better than your 500 novel about a scary clown. Sure, it may not compete with the best of the genre, but it surely can compete with the mid and the low ends of the genre. So try a little. You know, people really underestimate the power of a good story, mostly because we underestimate the power of emotions themselves. I mean, we as adults try to oppress and suppress the impact of emotions. We try to give logical reasoning to why we do things. But I mean, let's face it, you didn't get into the gym to feel healthy. Let's be honest. You did it because you wanted to feel attractive, you wanted to feel powerful, you wanted, I don't know, uh, to get back on your, get back is the right word, I'm not sure, to get back on your ex, etc. Like, it was emotions that drove you towards going to the gym and towards having a motivation in a way. That applies to most things. I mean, you didn't buy that flagship device because you needed all the features and you couldn't live without them. Let's face it, we do buy them because we like it flexing, we like having the best things available. We like it, we like it. It's feeling and emotionally driven. You'd be surprised by the amount of people I know who acquired a PhD, and I know them and I know deep down, and they have told me that the main reason wasn't really the career it opens, it was pretty much the social status that comes with having the D before your name, which makes sense, really makes sense. Granted, not everyone does these things for that reason in particular. Like, you may go to the gym to feel healthy, but you are probably doing other things for an emotional reason too. But as we said before, humans are very complex and they don't come with a backstory, and they don't even understand their driving forces. They cannot even see it all the time. They might even deny it at times. But if you ask me, at least to speak for myself, uh, everything is emotionally driven for me, and emotions are different. Like, what I feel from a thriller is very different than what I feel from a sitcom. And a healthy person should experience all range of emotions. Anyway, to answer the question, the initial question or the title of the video, why do we actually consume stories? Throughout all the three levels, I think we consume stories to feel. Like, this is the more accurate answer in a way. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. This is my second video, so of course I'm still learning. I'm still adjusting the setup. And again, I'm sorry in advance, but this is the last time you'll ever see this desk clear because I work on this desk and it's gonna be a mess. So I apologize in advance. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please consider subscribing, hitting that notification bell, because I'm not gonna spam you with videos. I'm very lazy and I get very busy at times. And making these videos kind of is a lot of time consuming. So it's gonna be at least a month or so before I drop another video. So consider activating that bell, ring, and if you like the video, of course, consider liking it. But please, if you can, leave me a comment with feedback. Any form of feedback helps. This is a growing channel, second video, so I don't really know what to make better. Maybe it's my voice, maybe it's the camera placement, the light. I don't know. Whatever it is that you find needs better work, please let me know. And hopefully see you on the next one. Bye bye.